Hey, welcome back to the Boombox.io YouTube channel with me, Music by Lucas. I'm continuing my tour around the world, and right now I'm in Croatia. I'm curious to know in the comments which record label you think has the best artists, or is your favorite record label, or the one you want to get signed by. Be sure to comment down below. And every month, someone who comments will get a $500 gift card from Boombox.io that you can use to get more gear for your studio. Now, let's go over the 10 reasons you may not be getting signed by record labels, and make sure you stay to the end because the last one is going to surprise you. Number one, and this is gonna sound obvious, but it's the quality of the track. It's really hard for a record label to wanna sign your track if it isn't at that quality standard of the other tracks that they're receiving. So make sure that you take extra time to get good feedback from people that you trust. You making sure that it's mixed and mastered, that it sounds professional, not just that it's, of course, original and unique, but it has to be quality too. Number two is the track arrangement. For example, if you're sending a record label a really long extended mix, they're only gonna listen to a few seconds of the track, so maybe all they're gonna hear is the intro of the track. That's why it's so important that the track that you send them, pretty much most of the time I would recommend, is a radio edit. I think radio edits are gonna get right to the point, start right with the break. Like if you have a vocal, have the track start right with the vocal, grab their attention and keep them hooked. Keep that A&R hook so that they listen to more of your track and get more enticed to sign it. Number three is either no vocal or overused samples. So a lot of labels only sign tracks with vocals, and you can tell if you just go to their Spotify release playlist. If you're hearing all the tracks have vocals, then most likely they're only gonna sign it if it has vocals. There's some that don't have vocals, so maybe if you're not into adding vocals to your track, you can go and find some of those labels too. But also, vocals allow your tracks to be more commercial, they get put on playlists more often, so unless you're producing something like lo-fi or a genre where vocals are not as important, make sure that you have vocals. And also make sure that you're not using overused samples, because if you're maybe using like a splice.com kind of sample for your music, just be careful not to use one that the label's heard a million times, because that can also be a reason that they won't sign your track. Number four, and this one's a little bit more rare, but it's your social following. Sometimes if a label, for example, is debating between a few different tracks, they're going to go and look to see what social following each of the artists has that's submitting, and kind of like what their profile and their brand and their community looks like. Basically, having a social following can be more helpful in helping you get signed, but I would say this one is less required. And a bonus tip for that one is just to make sure, even if you don't have a big following, that you're staying active on social media, that you have a profile picture, a good username, and a bio, and you look like you're doing stuff. Number five is your stream count. So again, if a label has a few different tracks they're debating in between, they're gonna most likely look for an artist that is going to have the higher stream count, because that is a higher chance of success for that release. Also, having a higher stream count can get you on bigger labels, of course, but it can also give you higher priority on those labels. So when they're releasing a few tracks that weekend or whatever, that they prioritize your track because you have the most streams or you have the biggest profile. This one's a little bit of a catch-22, because maybe you don't have any streams and you're like, how can I get streams if I don't already have them? There's a couple different techniques for this, and maybe we'll work on that in another video, but definitely consistent releases is one of the biggest. Number six is wrong submission method. So you might be thinking that the label is ignoring you, but maybe you didn't submit the way that they actually check. For example, maybe you found a random email on Google for that label, but they don't actually check that email anymore. Or maybe they have a submission form on their website that they prefer that you use for your demo submission, so you can check their terms and conditions or something else. So just make sure when you are submitting to labels that you're checking for what the best submission method is for that label, asking around on Discords and stuff like that, trying different methods. If you're not hearing back and you're not seeing that they're playing your track, for example, on SoundCloud, keep trying other submission methods. Number seven is if your track goes to spam. Now this is very similar to the last one, but a lot of times if a email address has never received emails from you before, your message can go to spam, especially if it appears spammy. So just make sure that when you're writing the email that maybe you're not adding a whole bunch of images or a bunch of random words that maybe would, get a spam alert, or like doing a bunch of BCC or CCing a whole bunch of different people onto the email. Try to make your emails individual and personal, just like you would email a friend or someone that you actually have email conversations with. Number 8 is if it's an incomplete track. So this could mean anything. It's not mixed, it's not mastered, maybe it's only a 1-minute clip of a track. You definitely always want your tracks to sound as complete as possible. There are some rare cases where maybe you send a track unmastered to a label and it's just that good that the label is like, we want to master this for you, or if you keep working on this, we'll sign it. But most of the time, if it's not complete, they're just going to pass on it, because most labels, especially bigger ones or quality labels, already have enough demos coming in that are already complete that they're just gonna sign those. Number 10 is coming soon, stay tuned for that one. But number 9 is sending to the wrong label. So if you are sending to a label that, for example, they don't sign that genre, or they're not looking for tracks right now, or they don't sign artists who are smaller. Like, there are a lot of labels who will not sign smaller artists unless maybe you have like a huge TikTok following, or it's a big collab, or something like that. So just be on the lookout to make sure you're sending to the right labels, and have some variety as well. Like, maybe don't always send to bigger ones, but don't always send to smaller ones. Try some different levels of labels and see where you get. And bonus tip for that one, don't send to more than one label at the same time. I know it's tempting to want to send to a bunch of different labels so you can hear back and not be waiting forever individually on one by one. But you don't want to be in a situation where 2 of them say yes and you have to turn down one of them. So the professional way to do it is just to send to one at a time and to wait till they respond, usually around a week to 10 days. And number 10, and this is a big one, is they might not sign your track if it's not a collab. And I know this is tough because a lot of us don't necessarily like working with other producers all the time, or maybe we just feel like we want to finish the track ourselves. But what you don't realize is that having a track as a collab is a huge win for labels, because it makes the track so much more marketable. Plus, it's a huge win for you because you get to also tap into another artist's audience. And one of the best ways to get signed to a label, if for example you've never worked with them before or you don't have any contact with them, is to collab with an artist who's already signed to that label, even if they're a much smaller artist, because that label already knows them, and it can be an easy way for you to be able to get in touch with that label through that other artist. Now, the best place to collab, of course, is Boombox.io, where you can store your files, you can leave voice comments, you can even do contracts and so much more. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go get your free account on Boombox.io. I'm curious to know if any of these tips stood out to you. Do you think there are a reason why maybe you were rejected by any labels that you sent to, or are you gonna use any of these tips to help yourself get signed by any other labels in the future? If you wanna drop a comment with your experience below, I'd love to see it, and I know that other people watching would love to read it as well. And you can find me on all socials at MusicByLukas, and of course, you can find Boombox at boombox.io, and we'll see you next time. Bye.